Well guys, it's official. This thing is dead, and I couldn't be more happy. The Nintendo Switch is one of the most infamous consoles out there, releasing in March of 2017 with games like Breath of the Wild and not much else, but it quickly got one of the best gaming lineups out there with games like... And, hey, tune in next time, I'm going to rank the top 10. And it also became the second best-selling console out there, almost surpassing the PS2. That's a lot. But as I said, this piece of junk released in March of 2017, and that was a damn long while ago. So this thing quickly went out of fashion hardware-wise, because many third-party games were having trouble fitting them onto this console and making them actually not blow up. So either third-party games had to be mashed together like a fucking Frankenstein thing, or just didn't release on the Switch at all, which ended up making the Switch's third-party lineup over time grow smaller and smaller. And when big third-party games did release on the Switch like Sonic Frontiers, no. Only a few years after this console's release, I would say starting around 2020, it really started to feel like we needed a refresh for this console hardware-wise. Say what we had with the new 3DS family of systems, so it could actually run games. They had Minecraft on that thing. And it seems that there was plans to release a Nintendo Switch Pro, but due to a little thing I like to call the COVID-19 pandemic, we got this thing instead. Now, the Switch OLED has nothing different hardware-wise compared to the original Switch. The main difference is it has a nicer kickstand, a metal back, and an OLED screen. That's about it. Now, this thing was a great upgrade to the original Switch. I actually got this thing around when it came out and had a lot of fun with this thing. But not having any hardware differences really set the Nintendo Switch back, because look at some of these games. Look at this. This is awful. Look at this compared to the PS4. And sure, randomly throughout the Switch's lifespan, we got the Switch Lite, but I think I used this thing for like 5 minutes. And it was forever until we heard any news about the successor to the Nintendo Switch. I expected it to come out around 2022. It's 2025. But avast, in January of 2025, right after the Christmas season, the Nintendo Switch 2 was first shown off in a quick little Apple keynote style video. This showed off the new look for the successor of the Nintendo Switch, dubbed the Nintendo Switch 2, as well as a new glimpse at Mario Kart, which we'll get back into in a second. We were promised a Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April of 2025, a whole 3 months later. It felt like forever. But when we got it, we were introduced officially to the Nintendo Switch 2. And from what Nintendo showed, the Nintendo Switch 2 was just the Nintendo Switch, but more powerful and a little nicer, because that's what it was. Sure, it had things like a microphone and magnetic Joy-Cons, which were pretty cool, but otherwise, this was just a Nintendo Switch, but better. Now, this is kind of weird, because Nintendo has always been about introducing their next console with something completely different compared to the previous. I mean, look at the GameCube compared to the Wii, look at the Wii compared to the Wii U, look at the Switch compared to everything else. And I'll look at the Switch 2. Now, that is a reasonable criticism against the Switch 2 because it kind of goes against Nintendo's whole motto, but honestly, from a business perspective, this is the best thing they could have released. Like, the Nintendo Switch 2 sold more than the human population, so why not just make another one? And the next few months after that Direct went by pretty fast because now we've had the Nintendo Switch 2 out for like a whole week. And here it is, I have it in my hands. So today I wanted to give my first thoughts after about a week's use of the Nintendo Switch 2. Actually, it's been, holy shit, 10 days. The main criticism with the Switch 2 was price, considering that it was essentially just a souped-up Switch, $200 more. The Switch 2 retailed at $450 USD with a $500 bundle, including the new Mario Kart, which, again, I'll get to. Now, that is pretty expensive on Nintendo standards because the Nintendo Switch released at $300, but with the console market we have now, including things like the economy and inflation and whatever else, I'd say that was fair enough, whatever. But what wasn't fair enough was the price of the games. The big launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, Mario Kart World, retailed at $80 USD. Now keep in mind, it was only a few years ago when we had to start getting used to $70 games. So now in 2025, to be bumped up to $80 starting with a new Mario Kart that's just not cool. Now, of course, you could get the game for $50 using the Nintendo Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart, but they didn't have those in stock at GameStop, so I had to get this. But that brings up a bigger conversation with the Nintendo Switch 2 and how everything is pretty crazily priced. Now, I already talked about the console being $450. That's not horrible in my opinion, I get it. But what is crazy is the game, as well as the accessories. Things like the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller originally were supposed to be $80, which was already $10 higher than the Nintendo Switch 1 Pro Controller, until randomly before the console release, they announced that it was going to be $5 more expensive. And I mean, $80, we've already peaked with the GameCube controller, there's no going up. pretty much every accessory was this way. Like the Nintendo Switch 2 carrying case was Jesus Christ. So I just bought one for like $20 off of Amazon, and this works fine. I mean, I haven't brought it anywhere, but it's a carrying case, come on. The main new accessory with the Nintendo Switch 2 is the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which is, as the name says, a camera for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, so far it's only compatible with a few games the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which I'll get to, and then also the Mario Party Jamboree expansion you can get for the Switch 2. However, I am cautiously excited for the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. I grew up pretty heavily with the Xbox 360 Kinect, and while that thing was a hot mess in its own right, there was a few pretty good games for that, like Kinect Adventures. I fucking love Kinect Adventure! So if someday Nintendo were to release a camera minigame collection, I would be all over that. I would buy the Switch 2 camera day fucking of if that was a long... So I'm getting worked up. And honestly, I could complain about the Switch 2 for like quite a while, but there are many things I do love about the system, like this thing feels great in your hands. Now this thing is already almost like 3 inches bigger in your hands, which for me, I have pretty big hands, so it feels very nice. And the Nintendo Switch 1, with its tiny ass controllers, can get pretty uncomfortable. And one of my biggest worries for the console before it released was the magnetic Joy-Cons, because I thought that was a great fix for the rail mechanic, which did not age very well, but I was worried that it was going to be kind of flimsy, but looking at them now, that's pretty damn solid. And things like the general shape of the controllers and the console in your hands were just improved to make it feel a lot better, and one of the things that has not been touched on very much that I feel the need to mention is how nice the sticks are on these Joy-Cons. Oh my god. Now I'm not talking about drift here because that is a whole other damn conversation, but look at these sticks compared to the... You can't really notice it, but like, they're very nice. And just look at the size difference here. It's very... I mean, it doesn't look very nice, but it... Trust me, you can feel it. I have gone as far as to say in the past that I believe the Joy-Cons, while being creative and pretty smartly designed, are the worst controller made by Nintendo, even compared to the Nintendo 64 controller, just because of their size in your hands. And while I would say that I would not prefer using the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons compared to like a Pro controller, I would much rather use these things compared to the original Joy-Cons. In fact, I like these. But it's not just the hardware with this console I care about, because the hardware only goes so far when you have no games. What are you going to do, play in the Mii Maker? You need games. And the big game that released with this console was, of course, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. I mean Mario Kart World. What you need to understand about Mario Kart World is that the last actual Mario Kart game released in 2014 and was re-released in 2017 for the Nintendo Switch, we had been playing Mario Kart 8 for 11 years. So I will say it was a very nice breath of fresh air to play something that wasn't fucking Mario Kart 8. And Mario Kart World, pretty good game. However, the big selling point was this game was Mario Kart's big shift to open world, which was kind of a weird genre to mix Mario Kart with, but in many ways it did work. You have a full map you could explore and drive around in, with missions to do, and crab, I don't know. It was pretty cool, but it's hard for me to say that I would have just preferred a normal Mario Kart game compared to this, because this can get kind of weird. For one, the transitions between tracks added to the cups in this game are pretty weird, considering that you have to drive to the next track, which takes up like 2 out of 3, sometimes 4 of the laps in the track. So for only sometimes less than half the track, you're actually playing on the track that you're told you're playing. I know that sounds weird, but it is. I think what's just weird to me is it'll say, hey, you're going to play Choco Mountain, and then you're not in Choco Mountain when you start. You have to drive to Choco Mountain. At that point, what the fuck is the point? Like, this was a cool gimmick, and in many ways this could have worked, maybe in a separate side mode, but for the main meal of the Mario Kart game, it just felt a little weird. And it's not to say that it wasn't fun. This game has very fun gameplay. I mean, look at this jumping, going on walls, and other stuff. It was pretty cool, but this one thing really brought the game down for me. Now, of course, I wouldn't say this game is bad. In fact, I would say that this is a great game, and I think if you like Mario Kart, you should play it. Duh. But I would just say that this adds a huge asterisk to the Mario Kart gameplay. Like, this is the next Mario Kart we're waiting for, and you just get to... You gotta drive to the next track. You can't just go to the next track. It's a cool idea and concept, but when fully written down and done, developed, it's hit or miss. And then, of course, you got the open world, which is fun to drive around in for a little bit, and there are some fun missions to do, but I'm not going to do this anymore. I did enough to do mirror mode, and then I played a little bit of mirror mode, and I'm going to keep playing it, but I don't think I'm ever going to touch the open world in this game again, so I would have just rather Nintendo put the development time away from developing the open world and just made more open, more cool, and more tracks in general. And that's probably the sentiment everyone has with this game, and yeah, I don't really see the open world coming back. And of course, that brings up the discussion if this game is worth $80, and the answer is no. And I can say it. I have the physical copy of this game. I paid the full $80 for this game. I do not think that this game was worth $80. I will say it. This game was worth $60, maybe $70, but that is pushing it. This is just another Mario Kart, and when you can get this Mario Kart with the DLC for like $80, it just makes you wonder, like, I mean, this game has like a lot more content. It's more easier to just sit back and play. Like, of course, this game is fun, but if you really want to get your $80 money worth, just buy this game with DLC included. But I do think that the track selection in Mario Kart World is one of the best we've ever seen in Mario Kart, because these tracks, they're good tracks. And it uses the new movement mechanics like the wall riding, the jumping, and whatever else really well. And this game has some good carts, some good items. It's an all-around good Mario Kart game. It's just the one thing that really brings it down for me, and I would have just rather them use what they had and just put that development time into the open world, into making more tracks. Again. And the one other Nintendo game released for this console so far has been the magnum opus of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think it will stay that way, being Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour for a whole $10 fucking dollars. Now, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour was supposed to be the Nintendo Switch 2's like Wii Sports, Nintendo Land, stuff like that, but it really falls on its face for one reason. $10 goddamn dollars! Yeah, this game is not a pack-in game. This game is $10 on the eShop, and I bought it because I am a stupid capitalist. I had originally planned on not buying the game. However, I heard through the grapevine, aka through like visions I had while I was high, that this game may be. I saw some gameplay of the minigames. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a try. I have a job. I can spend the extra $10, and I will say $1. The game was worth $1. Now, the main gist of this game is to get you used to the Nintendo Switch 2 and its new features and just whatever else. You get to walk around a big Nintendo Switch 2 amusement park in the shape of a Nintendo Switch 2, where you get to visit the controllers, the console itself, and the accessories, some that it comes with and some that it doesn't. So, actually, to 100% this game, you need to buy, I think, $95 worth of accessories, it says, which, fuck are you thinking, Nintendo? You see, a lot of this game, you just, like, walk to certain parts, collect the stamps for the parts of that console. It's weird to explain. You basically just find, like, the buttons on the certain area you're at, like if you're on the left Joy-Con bit, you find all the buttons on the Nintendo Switch 2's left Joy-Con, you collect the stamps for that, then you can press the next one. Scattered around are some minigames and some quizzes. I did, I think, 2 quizzes, and I realized you didn't need to do them, so I didn't do them. And the minigames here are hit or miss. Like, my favorite one was actually the first minigame you get to play, being the little mouse UFO game. I think that's what it's called. And the rest of the minigames here are very gimmicky. One was just like finding the little pixels on the 4K screen, and I sucked at that one, so I cheated and used the zoom feature. And then I thought there was going to be soccer. Turns out it was an FPS minigame. They fucked you over that soccer ball. Yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour game would have been a really cool addition if they just packed it in for free, and it would have been a good reason for you to buy the accessories. But having to spend $10 for the game, but then also having to buy the accessories if you want to do all the minigames, is lame as hell, Nintendo. And I honestly wish I just never bought this game, because I am one for voting for my wallet, and I feel like by buying this game, I voted for a capitalistic dictator. But I would say that the Nintendo Switch 2 is a huge look forward for Nintendo. We got games like Donkey Kong Bonanza releasing soon, that one disabled robot game I thought looked kind of cool. I am very cautiously excited for the Switch 2's future. But I think with all that, it begs the question, if Coil the Horror, can recommend you, the consumer, to buy the Nintendo Switch 2. Well, considering that I have probably captivated a huge Nintendo fanboy audience such as myself, I assume you've already bought it or plan on buying it very soon. However, for those who are not big Nintendo dick riders like me, I honestly would say to wait to buy this console. Sure, games like Mario Kart World are really good, but you can play a lot of the other games released for this so far on like your PS5. So, unless you're a really big Mario Kart fan, you can probably wait till Christmas, because at that point we'll have our big Christmas release, we'll have Donkey Kong, we'll have Mario Kart World, and it'll probably be on sale. So, for people who are more on edge with buying the system and want to get it, but just want to find the right time to, I would wait. I would wait till either like a Black Friday sale, a Christmas sale, something like that, until more games are released. Because at the point we're at now, I cannot recommend the Switch 2, because if you want to have a handheld tablet where you can play any game you want on it, buy a Steam Deck. Sure, the Steam Decks aren't perfect and they're kind of clunky, but if you just want a console, like a handheld console, you can play whatever the hell you want on, Steam Deck is going to do that tenfolds times better, the tenfolds better than the Switch 2. And well, of course, I would say the Nintendo Switch 2 has the comfortability factor set to it. Well, what the fuck did I say? Because this is a portable console. You can put it in a case and put it in your backpack. The Steam Deck is pretty big. It's probably a more like good at-home console, right? Like an at-home handheld console where you can just like play it on the couch while someone else watches TV or whatever. And you can also hook that up to your computer, right? It's just the Nintendo Switch 2. It's built for a very certain specific audience. And of course, I'm that specific audience, so I bought it. But for people who aren't big on the big Nintendo games, but maybe want it for its third party and a few Nintendo games, I would really just wait. Alright, in conclusion, buy and mod a PSP.